Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms. That
here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that.
And why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to try to keep them? I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people. Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true.
But
they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, you know, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was
enough.
going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
Joining me now with reaction, conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'souza and media reporter for The Hill, Joe Concha. So I just want to start off before we get to the whole arm push, whether it was or whether it wasn't. This is the President of the United States. He's the commander-in-chief, and he can characterize something happening at our border however he wants. It's an invasion, it's an incursion, it's an intrusion. He has authority over the border when it comes to national security. Remember Barack Obama in Benghazi? He said that terrorist attack was a protest over a video. Now, that was an extreme mischaracterization of the truth, and the media never challenged him on that at all. They let him slide on that. So to have Acosta come up over a difference of opinion, over a choice of words, and try to argue with the president in such a rude and disrespectful way, I thought was uncalled for. And just yanking the press pass is basically just saying, listen, Jim, get on the timeout, cool off for a second, and we'll let you back next week. Dinesh, what do you think?
Well, first of all, the exchange, this to me was highly entertaining. It reminded me of some of the skirmishes between Reagan and Sam Donaldson from the old days, except Reagan and Sam Donaldson were grown-ups. Now, the funny thing here, I think with Jim Acosta, I'd have to say, I'm looking at an overgrown infant. I don't know if this is medically possible that you physically grow, but emotionally you remain an infant, and intellectually, because when you're an emotional infant, you want to grab something, you don't want to stop, you don't know enough, you want another cookie, another piece of candy, and you won't take no for an answer. And the other thing is, you have a sense of entitlement and arrogance because you don't have...
He thinks he's above everybody else in that room. He thinks it's the Jim Acosta show, and he's there to trade barbs with the President of the United States, and if he gets called out for it, he's the victim. He thinks he's the Rosa Parks of the press corps, and he's too dramatic. I don't know Jim Acosta. I've never met him. He seems like a fine guy personally, but his behavior is totally out of line. And Joe, taking a press pass away isn't attacking the First Amendment. It's just telling the guy, hey, behave yourself and conduct yourself with a little bit more decorum and have a little bit more respect for the presidency.
I'm glad you played the entire clip because all I've seen is the microphone exchange. If you watch the clip, he tries to ask Acosta 4 different questions. The way a press conference like this works if you're a White House correspondent. You get one question and maybe a follow-up, maybe a second question. As you said, it's not his show. There are dozens of other reporters in there. Good ones, by the way. John Carl, ABC, Jeff Mason, Reuters, John Robertson, Fox News, Hallie Jackson, NBC. They're not trying to ask 4 questions in this case. And remember the way Acosta started that. He says, I want to challenge you. And then he goes into a lecture around whether it's an invasion or not. This is a mid-40s version of the captain of the debate team. Right? And that's not
And look how many
job.
questions the president took. He took 68 questions from 35 reporters. And Dinesh, Jim Acosta just wants to monopolize the whole thing. I think if you want to go up there and ask a question, fine. If you have a follow-up, see if you can squeeze it in. But to say to the commander-in-chief, you know what, I'm running the press conference. You don't get to decide when you want to move on to another reporter. I'm the one holding the mic. I get to decide when the President of the United States wants to move on to another reporter. Who does he think he is?
Well, I think what Trump finds maddening, and this explains the sharpness of the way Trump responded, is I think Trump recognizes that this same press corps, with Acosta in the lead perhaps, was just lapdog sycophantic to Obama.
Right.
And they are unremittingly hostile to Trump. Now, they have the right to do that, but to pretend that they're not doing that, to pretend that they're just being objective and, quote, doing their job, when the transparent bias, the agenda is so obvious to anyone watching, I think that's what Trump finds maddening.
They have no credibility because they treated both presidents totally differently. And then just lastly, real quick, I guess the White House is being accused of altering or doctoring that video or something like that. I don't know what they did or not. All I know is that if you look at it in real time, he has the mic in the one hand and he pulls his arm down on the woman's arm, and you can see it go down. So he's obviously provoking a physical confrontation.
I don't even think it's even the point, really, what happened with the microphone. This is 2 years of Acosta doing this. It is built to this crescendo. And let me go back to Neil Monroe. He was with the Daily Caller, and he interrupted President Obama in 2012. I asked your producers to put together a couple of headlines here as far as the reaction when he interrupted the president once. Politico, Obama interrupted by heckling reporter. Who is Neil Monroe and why is he interrupting the president? The Atlantic. And finally, this is the best one from Mediaite. CNN White House reporter. Obama heckler let him sound passionate. That White House reporter wasn't Jim Acosta. I don't hear anybody calling Jim Acosta a heckler now.
One man's heckler is another man's hero. All right, guys, I got to run. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The escalating rhetoric between the president and the press produced some tense moments this week in the White House briefing room.
Shouldn't you reserve the term enemy for people who are actually the enemy of the United States rather than journalists?
The president's not referencing all media. He's talking about the growing amount of fake news that exists in the country.
Jim Acosta pressed Sarah Sanders about CNN, which the serial pipe bomber targeted last week, but she wouldn't brand the entire network an enemy. And Dave Bussey, White House reporters and others are really now revolting against the president, bringing back this charge. He mentions it frequently, fake news, enemy of the American people. I've always said I think that goes too far rhetorically. And then, as you saw, she wouldn't name any, Sarah Sanders wouldn't name any particular outlets. Your take on this sort of rhetorical escalation?
The frustration on the right, on the conservative side, is that CNN acts like a Democrat super PAC. All day, every day, that is all they do, is act like they are trying to elect Democrats all day, every day. And they are trying to attack this president all day, every day. So this president says the fake news is the enemy of the people. And he's not saying the media, he's saying the fake news.
Wait, he said fake news is ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. So that's a lot of media.
Well, but he's saying the fake news because they all have made mistakes. Just look at yesterday. CNN puts a woman on during a rally as we found this woman in the audience, and they interview her, and it's Andrew Gillum's mother.
Well,
they don't. It
was disclosed.
I mean, of course, it's not disclosed until they're caught at it, though.
Well, okay, I think it was disclosed at the time. All right, Philippe, so we played earlier, President Trump told Axios, this is my only way to fight back, by attacking the press and using that language. And that's how he views it, counterpunching against the foe that is constantly pummeling him.
But these are code. Counterpunching is lying.
What?
Well, these things that he does, basically, let's narrow it down, including Sarah Sanders, it's lying. So when he says enemy of the people, the media is not the enemy of the people. This is one person's enemy list that he keeps reciting. It's as simple as that.
But how is it lying if that's his opinion? It's not an opinion I happen to agree with, but he certainly,
well,
it's a two-front war.
I just think in general the lying is off the chart. I mean, now you're seeing he's lied more than 5,000 times. He's lied at the rate of 80 a day.
This president is demonized by the mainstream media, by the left-wing mainstream media on a daily basis since he won the election in November of 2016. Not for 1 minute have they allowed him the breathing room like they have other presidents to have that honeymoon period.
Because 93% of the coverage is negative.
No.
Maybe 93% of what he does is negative.
No, look at, hey, how about we look at the economy? How about we look at our national security? The facts are that the economy is better off. The American people are better off. We are more secure at home and abroad since this president has come into office. Those are the facts. It's the media doesn't want the American people to hear how good things are going because they are afraid of having Republicans in control on Tuesday.
The good thing about this talking about Tuesday is that we're going to go from fake news and fake polls and fake everything to real voting. And I think we're going to see after the blue tornado, I don't think it's a wave because I think it's going to hit here, miss this district. Right. We're going to see whether or not this stuff works.
And we'll have more on this later on. But a number of individuals who told me about the shenanigans in Arizona, in Maricopa County, and in there's one other county, and excuse me for not remembering, in Tucson. I think it's Pena County, where emergency polling stations were opened without with only notice given to one side, naming to Kyrsten Sinema's campaign. Wow. So suddenly emergency polling stations were opened, and then door knockers were conveniently placed to vote, and on the door knockers it said, vote, no ID required, for these emergency polling stations. And it was just curious how only one side seemed to know that these emergency polling stations were set up, which again was contrary to how things were supposed to go. In the procedural norms that are being violated by one side here is appalling. This is just an appalling series of actions. Now, we're going to bring you a report on exactly what is happening in Arizona. And I know everyone's like, well, there's 29,000 votes. I understand that. But Republicans cannot let these Democrat election officials get away with violating the rules of the road for these elections, because if they can violate them with impunity now, imagine what they're going to do in 2020. So every violation of election laws on either side, but primarily these are happening now on the Democratic side, both in Florida and in Arizona. This has got to be exposed, and lawsuits need to be filed, regardless of whether you're going to make up the votes. It's very important that this be done. So I have another report on that. I'll bring that to you later on. 855-40-LAURA. Raymond Arroyo is with us. We're going to take a break. Michelle Obama claiming, her husband's administration, it was such a relief to have this calm, learned, book-smart guy running the country. And now it's just hitting her, right in the heart because, read between the lines. This, racist is running the country. Don't go away.
Give them the old razzle-dazzle, razzle-dazzle.
Our presence in the White House had been celebrated by millions of Americans, but it also contributed to a reactionary sense of fear and resentment among others. The hatred was old and deep and as dangerous as ever.
They're still crying. Look at them. They're still crying. I see with sequence.
Pluto TV is the leading free streaming television service. Watch over 100 TV channels and thousands of movies on demand, all for free. No credit card needed, no sign-up. Pluto TV is the easy and completely legal to watch your favorite TV shows and hit movies. So what are you waiting for? Never pay for TV again. Download Pluto TV for free on all of your favorite devices today.
As much as you loved your husband and gave him your blessing to run for president, you didn't think he would win.
I think I did what a lot of black folks were doing. We were afraid to hope because it's hard to believe that the country that oppressed you could one day be led by you. You know, I mean, my grandparents, you know, lived through segregation. These memories were real, and they didn't think the country was ready, and so my attitude was a reflection of that skepticism.
Oh, Michelle Obama said that. I haven't seen it. I guess she wrote a book. She got paid a lot of money to write a book, and they always insist that you come up with controversy.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Well, Michelle Obama is reflecting on her time as, the wife of a candidate for the presidency, and, you know, she didn't think it was possible. Well, I mean, I guess I understand that. I mean, I'm not sure if I can't criticize her for that. I mean, it come a long way. I mean, I think the good news here is whatever you think about the president, President Obama, it's a sign that there was enormous progress in the United States, racial progress, healing, and advancement, opportunities. There's no doubt about it. Opportunities for people of all backgrounds and ethnicities, and that's a good thing. The concerning thing, however, is when people act like there has been no progress made at all and want to use race as a weapon against people who had nothing to do ever with racism. That's the problem. I think we all agree that it's great news that people of all ethnic and racial backgrounds have advanced. And look, we had a 2-term president. He is elected not once but twice, including by a substantial percentage of white Americans. They didn't care what color his skin was. They voted for someone they thought was going to deliver, quote, change to America. But when you go back and you review just how divided the country was at the end of Obama's term, it's stunning. I tweeted this out last week, and it was shocking. I mean, it really was shocking. This is January 15th, 2017, right before Donald Trump was inaugurated. This is AP, Associated Press. More Americans feel Barack Obama's presidency divided the country than feel it brought people together. 8 years after Obama's historic election, just 27% see the United States as more united as a result of his presidency. And far more, 44% say they think it's more divided. These figures underscore one of the key contradictions of Obama's presidency. By and large, Americans like him, yet aside from the big Obamacare health care overhaul, he's been unable to translate that approval into congressional majorities to fulfill many of his goals. And then Obama said that. It's one of the few regrets of my presidency, that the rancor and suspicion between the parties has gotten worse instead of better. Well, who's responsible for that? But 57% viewed him more favorably, putting him way ahead of George W. Bush, who went out with low personal approvals. Just over half of Obama's, say Obama's presidency has been great or good. 37% view him unfavorably. Fascinating. We have a lot more to get to. 855-40-LAURA. Stay there.
Now witness the quickness with which we
One of the concerns you hear is Democrats are just going to issue subpoena after subpoena and make the president's life legally more difficult. Is there a limitation to that you see?
Well, we are responsible. We are not scattershot. We are not doing any investigation for a political purpose.
Oh, yeah. No political purpose whatsoever. No. This is just all for the people. This is not about 2020. They're already lining him up. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us. Congressman Steve Scalise from the great state of Louisiana. His new book, Back in the Game, it's out tomorrow. Got to get it. Fantastic, recounting what he's been through over the last year and looking forward with faith and hope and charity and a new resolve. And we're delighted he's with us now. Congressman, great to have you with us. Congrats.
Thanks, Laura. Always great to be back with you. How are you doing?
I'm good, but these Democrats are ramping up. What's your take on what Nancy Pelosi is already warning about?
Well, you can see that they want to move to it's going to be all kind of investigations and just going after the Trump administration every day, trying to slow down any kind of progress. I don't think that's what the American people want. That wasn't what a lot of the candidates that ran and won a lot of Republican seats were running on, and ultimately they're going to have to make decisions. Do they come to Washington and just try to resist and be a part of that movement? I think we would beat a lot of them, and hopefully we will win back the majority by, frankly, focusing on the things that worked. We got the economy back on track. People like the healthy economy. President Trump did really well in the states he went in and won a lot more Senate seats. But on the House side, we lost. We got to look in the mirror and find out why. But ultimately, I think they're going to move so far to the left that it's far. This is still a center-right nation. And when you see the kind of radical agenda they're going to move forward with, the likes of Maxine Waters chairing the Financial Services Committee and Nadler and others just wanting to go after the president and slow down progress, that's not where the American people are.
Congressman, are you surprised